It goes like this. The BBC has a young, progressive workforce and an older management. Management has tried, often in vain of late, to maintain the old standards of impartiality. Now, not only can these two things be true at the same time, but this divide is central to the current crisis. You've got an old guard at the BBC who think things should be done in an old sort of way, but basically every junior position in the BBC, which is the vast majority of them, are staffed by young, progressive people who have a certain view of the world that is wildly out of step with the views of people out there in the real country.
When you say that, though, what are you suggesting, that the older guard view life and the younger guard? What is the difference between the way they view them?
I think that there will be lots of people at the BBC who believe in their heart they are completely unbiased. They believe they are doing straight down the line news, but their worldview is just so different from the worldview that many people have elsewhere in the country. They will think something completely unbiased and respectful on, for example, transgender issues. They'll think that they're doing something right, whereas a lot of the country might think that that's an extremist position that they're taking. But their social circle is so different, their worldview is so different, that they can be honest in their view within themselves that they're being unbiased. So whereas most people would look at that and say, well, that's a biased point of view.
Do you think that a lot of the young people have been captured by a lot of the ideology?
I think they just live in a different world.
But it's the older guard who let that go through. I mean, remember the chance death to the IDF? They all thought, and from what I can understand, a lot of reports there, a lot of people thought that's perfectly good. No, well done to Bob Villan when he came off stage. Apparently they're all congratulating him and couldn't see that there was a problem. And Tim Davie was apparently there.
Well, Tim Davie, I don't think was at that specific concert, but he was at Glastonbury.
That's the one I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
This is the thing. How many? No, of course, I completely understand what you're saying. But I think that again is how senior was the person who could make the call on the Bob Villan thing? Would it have been someone absolutely on the board of the BBC, or would it have been someone that was relatively younger, relatively more junior?
No, I think that was Lorna Clark. I know Lorna Clark as well. I used to work with her when I worked at Kiss 100, and she is one of the big bods at BBC Radio 2. I think she's moved aside to do other things, but she was one of the big decision makers there as well. And she's been in radio for many years, and I've worked alongside her. She was above me, a senior person, so I don't see why she would have thought that was OK.
But you're absolutely right, and that tweet that you've read out, it doesn't just end with the BBC. That's the problem with government and Whitehall and civil servants. You've got a number of people that are working in positions, often junior or back office, as it were, that are throwing their view of the world forward, and they're not necessarily taking the directions of what ministers want and what the public want. So that's why you see it's so difficult sometimes to get change, and that's why there are so many fights, particularly within the Home Office, might I add, because successive Home Secretaries have tried, as we just talked about, to do with the small boat crossings, but you'll get a plethora of junior civil servants who are the ones that are actually working away in the background, doing the legwork, but actually believe that everybody that comes over in a small boat is a refugee. Yep. Or they have a particular view of the world that is counter to actually what common sense views are and what the public and ministers actually think. And that goes, again, to the BBC.
The other thing is, it's the gall of them to try and discipline Martine Croxall. As I understand it, she was reading a quote, but then she kind of, corrected it in her view because pregnant people are women. She raised an eyebrow, and the BBC have the gall to say, how dare you? 20 people complained, and that was it. She's to be disciplined. The complaint was upheld. It's like, what about half the population who are women who would have been deeply offended by being called a pregnant person?
Now, I just want to read some elements of this letter that we've got in front of us, and it's a letter that runs to 24 pages, but it opens, and of course Samir Shah, who's the chair of the BBC, he opens by acknowledging the resignations, but says Tim Davie has been an exceptional Director General and leader, not just of the BBC, but of the UK creative industries. He led the BBC with great integrity, enormous talent and extraordinary resilience, transforming the BBC to serve all its audiences. This is gushing with praise for a man who's just resigned. It's a little bit jarring.
In disgrace. He's not just resigned after a nice time and it's all gone all rather well. He's, as I said earlier, you should not be a household name if you're the BBC Director General, particularly if it's for all bad things. Somebody name me a positive that you could reel off that Tim Davie has done. It's very concerning. I think that the thing that we have to remember is the media, and particularly the BBC, it's an elite institution. And unless you're lucky enough to get a break. There's only so many types of people that could do unpaid internships, or somebody whose dad may have been a producer or presenter there many years ago. So you're always going to get a certain type of person working there, which is going to be London-based, maybe progressive in their thinking, no doubt, and therefore feel like they want to have their say on the world.
It is a bit... sorry, go on, Tom, you've got more of the letter.
Yeah, I was just going to point out that there were over 500 complaints about the Panorama programme, and these are being dealt with in the normal way, says
When
this
were they
letter.
put in, though? Because I had read earlier today that when it was aired, there wasn't a single complaint.
So this is
And
since
sort
the
of been
publication of
unearthed.
Mr Prescott's memo,
Right,
leaked
yeah, that
memo.
makes sense.
There had subsequently been 500 complaints.
Because I wonder where this has come from. Not that it's like sticking up for anybody that's done it, but there was no complaints at the time. Nobody's noticed. It's only recently come to light, and whether this has come from Prescott's letter or whatever else, nobody seems to have noticed for quite some time.
Well, perhaps it's all the sort of the things that have happened, Martine Croxall, the whole Gaza stuff, and maybe you just had quite enough.
Maybe a whistleblower, yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
But of course, what this has done is highlighted, because this dossier, the notes that Mr Prescott put out, this was a sort of... it was designed to be a wake-up call for the BBC. And I suppose whoever leaked it would have thought that the BBC wasn't taking it seriously enough. And yet now in this letter that has just been published, it says the board will commit to revisiting each and every item set out in Michael Prescott's note and will take further action where appropriate. We will be transparent about the conclusions we reach and the actions taken. What this has done, this leaking process and the scandal that sort of ricocheted off this leak, it's taken an annoying internal report that probably the people in charge really didn't want to read and didn't want to act on. And this sort of sidelined report has now become the lodestar for what the BBC must check its output against, recommit to revisiting each and every single item set out in the note. That's what's now just been published in this letter. I mean, this is an extraordinary sort of reversal of fortunes, and I wonder, Charlie, I mean, with your experience in government, very often this is what leaking can do. It can supercharge an issue and put perhaps previously an obscure process or document right at the centre of things.
No, you're absolutely right, Tom. I mean, what does he expect, from this? Should we be grateful that they're going to... these are things that should be happening anyway. These are basic fundamentals of when you output anything, any kind of programme or view or policy, whatever it is, whether it's government, whether it's the BBC, all of these things have got to be checked and checked and checked again in advance. So the idea that it has taken a whistleblower, effectively, to expose someone that was trying to force their own view of the world, or particularly a characteristic trait of Donald Trump, onto the rest of us, which was factually wrong. It was propaganda. What else can you call it? Of course the BBC should be checking it, but they should be doing that anyway. And that's why people will be angry. And that's why I'm very angry about it, because I say there are good bits of the BBC. And I think people that have respected it in the past will be furious about this, because this is so just so wrong. It is against everything that the BBC stands for in terms of impartiality, that it sort of lectures us all for, and supposedly is the beacon of verify and all the rest of it, and it clearly hasn't been. So they've really got to get their act in order.
It is quite telling, the fact that even those who are apologising, so Samir Shah doesn't. Again, the apology didn't feel like he understands the actual impact of what has happened here and the ricochet of this around the world and the damage that this would have done to the name of the BBC, because there have been so many other incidents that have been reported globally as well. I mean, Israel, for example, the bomb that was misfired by Hamas, and a BBC broadcaster saying this is definitely, and without doubt, can't see anything other than it would be a bomb from Israel. And of course, if even the apology was almost not an apology when they were apologising for it, everything, it seems, when they get things wrong, it takes a lot for them to make a real apology. And the other thing is that They have resigned when really they should have been sacked. And there's benefits to resigning. And I think they should have been sacked. And I think they can access all the pensions and everything else that they're going to get. He'll probably get a big golden handshake for stepping down. I think that's totally wrong.
I think what it shows, all news outlets could probably take a leaf out of things like the Israel bombing situation, is we live in a time where people and organisations want to be there first. It's far more important to be accurate than to get there first, but have to apologise much later, especially when you're dealing with situations such as what's going on in the Middle East, because you don't know what that misinformation can trigger, potentially on the other side and things like that. So I think it's a lesson for all, really, and particularly the BBC who did as such.
But that's, I think you're absolutely right, Matthew. But that, again, is why there's going to be so much criticism of the BBC, because it's not just about getting there first or factually, it's presenting a view. They've presented a left-wing biased view, whether it's anti-Trump or whether it's pro-Palestine.
We're talking about this apology. We've got this up on the screen right now. The full, it's a long letter, but this key paragraph on the screen now, I'll read it for those at home. This is the entire apology in the very long letter. Since the publication of Mr. Prescott's memo, this issue has led to over 500 complaints. These are now being dealt with in the normal way. It has also prompted further reflection by the BBC. The conclusion of that deliberation is that we accept the way the speech was edited did give the impression of a direct call for violent action. The BBC would like to apologise for that error of judgment.